about in the past few months. And so we're going to start with sort of stating why we started to look at it and think about it.
Okay, so this is, just like Stella said, where we are now, and then there is a question of how we want to replace what we are currently doing with this idea of getting the reviews of Bugzilla. So the first thing is, how are we currently doing our reviews? So I think most of you in the audience, if you're interested in this talk, is because you are also a packager, so you probably know this workflow pretty well. But do you actually remember the first time you had to go through it? The first time you actually didn't know the workflow and you had to go through all the steps and learning them one by one. So, as you know, there is a lot of manual work. Federal review that Stan and I started a while back now has improved quite a bit the situation here because all of the things that could be automated or as much as possible, well, federal review helps actually making that automatic. But when you're a newcomer, there's still a lot of manual steps. There is no integration with Git, so that means that when you actually have your first package approved, you still have a bunch of tools and environment to actually learn. And that's not something that during the review process we are preparing the packager for. So we don't have Git integration, which means that we also lose all the history of the evolution of the spec file during the review. I mean, it does exist, it's pretty much only on Bugzilla and eventually in the changelog. We have no inline comments, which means that every comment that we do on the spec file, we actually have to do it on the Bugzilla ticket, and that means that it's harder to say, well, on line number 2 here, this will be what you put, and I would make something different here. And having inline comments, if you have used GitHub, you probably know how handy this is and how practical and enjoyable this gets. One of the problems of package reviews is Bugzilla itself. Bugzilla is a bug tracking tool. It's not made for what we're using it for package review. So we actually are going around what the normal Bugzilla workflow is to actually fit it to our needs. And we always thought that it might be a good time to actually start using a different tool and adjust our workflow to the tool rather than, adjust the tool to our workflow rather than the workflow to the tool. Another thing which is Federal Review does a number of automatic checks, and these could be automatically run. And with Bugzilla, we don't have this at the moment. So, for example, we end up in situations where newcomers are submitting packages who just don't build in Koji, because eventually they are pulling during the build, they are making internet calls, or they are missing dependencies, and the new packager are not necessarily aware of Mock, don't necessarily know how to use it, or don't realize that during the build, or during the test, they're actually pulling things, making calls to the internet, which is not allowed in Koji, and therefore the build that works locally will not work. So being able to, when a package is submitting, just run scratch build, run it on the different branch on which the packager is requesting the package to be added, that would already save quite and trim down quite a bit of work, because otherwise you have a newcomer that arrives, submits a package, wait for a while, someone arrives and it's like, okay, this looks like an interesting package, I can review that, and just start a crash build and it just doesn't work. So the reviewer comments, well, your package doesn't work, and then you have to wait for a week or 2 or 3 before the packager actually gets back onto that ticket and pay the spec file, and we are back into the waiting cycle. So if we can actually catch this much earlier in the process, that would save time on both time and energy for both the reviewer and the packager. Then there is also the disconnect from packaging reality.
Like this. So does this work? Does this work? Yeah, it does. So disconnect from packaging reality is disconnect from packaging reality is basically about that during the package review you cannot really use fed package command. Well, you can hack around it and you can almost use it, but it just doesn't work. Most people use RPM build or their own scripts to kind of work around it and make it work for them. But there is no nice tool to you can do something, clone, I want to start a new review, start a new package, whatever. There's nothing like that. So, yeah, okay, so going from that, we actually mapped out what we have. I'm not going to actually go into details here, but we have, click on it. There's this, it's an SVG. We just basically describes the workflow that the packager and the reviewers and everybody goes through. And this is actually a new one. I'm not sure why. I should have cloned this. That's your imperator, isn't it? Yeah, so this is. No, it should be good. How can it be the new one? Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, so this is the workflow that we currently have, where people have to read the guidelines, do all kinds of crazy shit. This is actually the first part is basically copied from the wiki. What people have to do. Some of those things I'm not even sure what they mean, like verify software suitability. There's a point like that. I'm gonna guess it links to maybe patent stuff and all that, licensing maybe. But for first timers, they have to have a place to upload the tarbles, to do this stuff. They even have to learn right at first RPM build, those kind of things. And they have to then create a new SRPM for every revision of the spec file and so on. And it just gets complicated over time. It doesn't get easier for them as they review. They have to wait, and it's unclear what they are waiting for actually. So usually people are monitoring the review list, but people forget to set the Fedora review flags or finit sponsor blocks. It's just unless all of this is done manually, it just doesn't work. And the problem this doesn't work in Bugzilla is because Bugzilla has no idea about Fedora account system, right? So it doesn't know if the submitter is a packager or is a sponsor or, and there's different kinds of relationship we might need to actually map out. I don't want to go into detail. This is actually online and it's going to be shared. You can go through it. You can go through it and see if it makes sense, if it's correct. If it's not, then let us know. We'll fix it up. So that's our current process, and so the new idea that we have with Pingu is we would have two components. One is the review server, which is Git-enabled service, which also contains local-site cache and tools and automation for the review. And then the client counterpart for the packager, so something we call FedRef for now, which is basically the review counterpart of Fed package. So you would be able to create a review in the review server and then do FedRef, clone, name of the package you want to review. It would clone the repo. You could do fedrev, scratch build, -s RPM, same as you do with a package, if you have the certificate, but we can guide you through it. The fedrev would enable actually some of those things which we probably don't want to do in fed package, since fedrev would be specifically for people new to review our package review and packaging with Fedora. The idea was, we would run Fedora review after Git. Each push of Git, people would be able to do fedrev, new sources, and upload the tarballs into Fedora infrastructure. If the reviewer found that from a legal standpoint or patents or whatever, this is never going to fly, we can clean the local site cache, and we're always going to clean the local site cache even after the review is finished successfully. So if there was a step in the middle where someone committed something that shouldn't be there or uploaded something to the local site cache, it's not going to be there anymore. And as a bonus point, there would not be any more Bugzilla integration. There's a modified workflow, which I'm actually going to go through a little bit maybe. I'm going to skip the common part because there's always going to be, people will still have to at least look at the packaging guidelines, and they will always have to install Fedora Packager and run Fedora Packager setups and stuff like that. Where it gets different, so the new packager would start basically here, create a new review in a review server. They would specify a package name that they want. At this point, we can already check if that package exists, if there's a name clash. We don't have duplicates. Although, of course, people can name their package differently, so it's not completely ruled out, but it can happen. They specify a package summary, and also releases of interest. So they can specify, for example, I want to do a release for Fedora 21, Rawhide, and maybe Apple 5, 6. At this point in Bugzilla, there's no way to tell this. They can comment in the initial part that I'm planning to do this also on Equal, but there's no programmatic way to say this. At this point, the Fedora review server can create a Git repo and generate the template spec file. Maybe at this point, somewhere here, we could do what type of package is it? Is it a PHP? Is it Java, Maven, whatever? And we can generate the template that's most likely what they will need to start out to help them out. And we can also, in the template, we can already do things like inject the package name into the spec file, the summary, the same as what they filled in initially. So we generate this template spec file, we give them the URL of a Git repo, which they can clone. They can do fedrev, and this is now we get to the different counterpart, the fedrev command, where you can do fedrev clone and the name of the package instead of dealing with some repo URLs. They can do fedrev new sources, upload the tarballs into not the Fedora local site cache, but the specific just for reviews, so we can clean it if needed. They edit the spec file. They do fedrev commit, fedrev push, and at this point, the Fedora review server can run Fedora review for each branch where the reviewee asked, like he said, I want to do Fedora 21 and equal 6, so we're going to run Fedora review for those two mock builds. And then we can post, of course, the Fedora review issues that we found as comments into the review. At some later point, a reviewer comes along, he sees, what Fedora review issues there are. He can post comments on the review. He can download direct the spec file and SRP directly from the review server, or he can clone. He can use FedRev, clone the same review as the reviewee, and then FedRev prep, so it unpacks the tarball from the local site cache. You can have a look, comment on the review, and then the standard workflow of need to work, or this will never work because there are some pattern issues, whatever. And if we go into kind of a happy path where we say the package is okay, then they comment like, yeah, this looks fine, approved. We can automatically, this other swim line is actually package DB2, which Ingo is working on. So I'm gonna just.
So one of the ideas here is that when the package is approved at the moment, what you do is you add the SCM request on the ticket, and then release engineering comes, check the review was done correctly, creates the Git repo, create the package in the database. Well, with review server, what we're going to be able to do is send a fetch message on the bus that says this review has been approved. Then we can directly send a message to the release engineering that this package has been approved on Bugzilla. These are the information for which works, and from there create the package in package.db and let release engineering put the last flag of saying, well, we approve the creation of this package in package.db. Package.db itself sends a fed message that this package was created for this and this branch, and the Git is created automatically with the correct branch. So this is something which we actually might, to a certain extent, already be able to do with Bugzilla. So we're not going to wait for review server to actually try to automate this process, but the review server will just give us more flexibility and even more automation than we have at the moment. So one of the things that we haven't on the graph here, which is basically how the request branches will be managed. So at the very beginning, the reviewee is asking, well, I would like to submit this package for Federal and EL5 and 6. And then what happens during the review, often or sometimes, is that the package won't build on EL5 because of some dependencies which are not present or because of some incompatibilities. That's something which happens during the review. So we actually don't want to let the reviewee change the branch of interest at every other comment, because then at the end he's still able to change the branches. So it gets very quickly, we're not sure anymore which branch are of interest. So our idea is to have the reviewee specify at the beginning of the commit of the review which are the branch of interest, and have the reviewer set at the end, I approve this package for this and this and this branch. So for example, if you ask for February 19, 2021, EL5, EL6, EL7, then the reviewer can say, well, this will work on EL6, EL7, but it's not going to work on EL5. So I approve for Fedora, EL7, and EL6. And then this is the information which is forwarded to package.db, and this is the branch for which the package will be created. That doesn't mean that later on the EL5 branch cannot be added, but then this is just like the current process that we have of requesting another branch from an existing package. And that means that if the packager really wants to have the EL5 branch, and the package doesn't build, that's the packager's mistake. It's the reviewer did this job and say, but that's not going to work on EL5. If you just push forward, well, you will get it just like you can get a new branch at the moment. But then it's really a consumer action for the packager that I really want the EL5 branch, despite my reviewer saying that it's not going to work on EL5. So this is a little bit how we are thinking about doing this approach at the moment. The final process is that once we have the branch created, the Git adjusted on Fedora side, we can also actually move directly the sources from the temporary leukocyte cache of the review directly into the Fedora leukocyte cache, and and import the Git history from the review into the Fedora Git. And then it will be a matter of doing git merge and push for the other branch. So yeah, the import will be on master, and we will let the new maintainer actually build merge and build further.
I'm just gonna add here a few things. So currently the RCM admin part of the review is kind of, they really do have to sanity check some of the things, like, because at this point almost anybody can set Fedora Review Plus. So they have to verify, is this person a sponsor, if, you know, or if this person is, you know, a new packager, is this person a sponsor? If you know, I think you mentioned that it happened one time that basically reviewer and reviewee switched in the middle of the review. So basically someone approved his own package and things like that. So this happens in Bugzilla, and this wouldn't be able, you know, this wouldn't be possible to happen in Fedora Review Server. Yeah.
I have had several occasions where a submitter and reviewer swap roles. I mean, sometimes that this happens if one of the two ends up being busy. The original submitter and the other one is interested, and they both agree it's a good package, right? The idea is having 4 pairs of eyes on the span. As long as there are 2 pairs of eyes and 4 eyes. So as long as there are 2 pairs of eyes on the spec, it should be okay.
Okay, so the question or suggestion was that in some cases it makes sense for packager and reviewer to actually swap roles in the middle of a review. It's an idea, although it's ripe for abuse, I would say. If as somebody wants to abuse the system,
I did see the case that you're referring to. I did look kind of legit. I can't remember it right now, but it was fairly recent, and I took a look at it. Yeah, and it didn't seem like they were using systems.
okay.
I mean, it's the same if you have a SIG. Like, in the beginning when I did lots of Fedora packaging, there was the game special interest group. And Ward, who back then still was one of us, and he packaged a lot of games in that time, because we had very little games in Fedora, and I was reviewing his packages and he was reviewing mine, sort of in tandem. It's almost the same, right? Whether we swap roles that way or we keep swapping reviews all the time. You just have a pair of people working together, and it may look like, yeah, favoritism, or that you get less strict with each other. But yeah, it will happen that way too. So
That's true, but the idea is just that if you actually do switch role in between, then actually creating a different review, even if it's for the same spec file, just makes more sense.
as long as the two doesn't get in the way.
Yeah, that's it. Or trying to get the tool as much out of the way as possible, which Bugzilla is not there yet.
But the most effective way to abuse is not to switch the rows during the review, but to switch the rows before the review, to just have somebody else submit your spec file and then review it.
Right, I think we can all agree if somebody wants to abuse systems in Fedora, they easily can. We are certainly always relying on goodwill of people. We always will. There's no other way to do it, and trust. Anyway, so the final step would be for the new packager to basically just switch from using FedRef into using FedPackage, which should be much less of a shock than using RPM build. And then, of course, learning the rest of the build system, the Bodhi updates, and all of that, which we probably don't want to involve in the review process. But so we don't want to overwhelm the reviewer, the reviewee during the process. Sorry?
So then, now that we have presented you everything we have in mind, well, this is where we are now. So we actually have the workflow that we just presented. It's something which is about 2 days old, about something like that. So we still need to let it sink a little bit and see if there are parts which we can automate more or to tweak and to get again the tool out of the way. I've already been working on small side projects which I call ProGate and which I'm presenting tomorrow, but the idea was also to get a bit of experience on how to integrate Git with web applications. So we actually have already some little bit of experience on how we can and how we want to integrate Git on the backend. Yeah, this is the project it's a perfect concept. It's a prototype at the moment, but much more online. And then we have the idea of how we want to connect things. There are still discussions that we need to occur within the federal infrastructure. So, for example, how we want to set up the side cache and make sure that release engineering is also fine with the way we want to do things. And legal, of course, because we actually have to make sure that, that if someone uploads something which is not allowed on the federal server, we have a good way to clean it, and we have to ask you if they're okay with that.
Just a small note here. Basically, this can happen at this point anyway, because anybody with a FAS account can request space in Fedora people, and they can upload whatever the hell they want there. We just want to make it easier for them to upload stuff for reviews. Yeah, and really that would be just for reviews. And well, so here's the point where you come in. We don't actually have a name yet. I mean, Fedora Review Server is kind of a work in progress name we've been using when we talked about it, but I don't know, maybe it is fine, but yeah, it's kind of long, so. Yeah. We did a code name, there is Bodhi, there is.
But the thing that does, it's kind of nice to have a name that says exactly what it is, because the first thing you have to say when you say Bodhi is explain what Bodhi is.
Yeah.
It's called Fedora Update Feedback System. That would be a lot simpler in some ways.
Yeah, well, that might be true. We'll see. But if you do have some suggestions, we'll welcome. We would welcome them. Also, any other feedback with regards to, such as maybe switching roles. This is actually this presentation and the diagrams are also on currently on OpenShift. Actually, I can show you the URL after we finish. You can go through it even now. If you spot, inaccuracies in the workflows, especially the current ones, or you think something should work differently in the future one, we'd also like to give feedback, because that will probably help us do the UI later on as well, so we don't do necessary stupid stuff. And we need to actually connect the dots, create and start the real implementation work besides the prototype. Although that actually already works, and we can actually show it just a little bit because Ingo is going to present it tomorrow. We should clone it. So this is basically Fedora. This is actually Inception, right? Progit, hosting Progit repo with 3 forks. And then, sort of browse them. What's missing there is, and maybe Pingu would like some input on that. What's missing is, for example, inline comments, right? Which you've been thinking about. That's fine.
So I presented much about it. Basically, this is all using Git on the back end. It was just for me to actually learn how to integrate with Git and interact with Git. And one of the things is indeed from the pull request mechanisms, there is no line comment yet. That's something which I would like to do, and that's something which I probably will do here because I have the framework before I do it on Fedora Review Server. Unless I actually start to work earlier on the Fedora Review Server, it might have on Fedora Review Server before I break it. So I think now the floor is yours. Do you have any questions, remarks, feedbacks, ideas, rotten tomatoes?
I've got a question on the workflow. So you just proposed to do the review not for the package in general, but for each branch, correct?
So the question is, let me know if it's correct, that we are going to review for each branch separately. So the idea now is for us at least that we review, so for example the Git of the review will only contain one branch. So there is only one spec file to review, But as you know, we have some ifs, we have some conditions that allow one spec file to be used for all the different critical Fedora releases and APO releases. So the idea is that you have one release, but for example, Fedora review or scratch builds are done on all the branch of interest.
But what's going to happen if I want to keep separate spec files for, say, EPL5?
So the question is, what's happening if you actually want to use different spec file for EPL and Fedora? And that's a question which we have thought about, and at the first time we will start simple with one branch in Git. There is definitely room for having multiple branches in Git and having different reviews, or reviewing the Fedora and the APL spec file differently. That does mean the reviewer will have a little bit more work to do and be more careful about it. I forgot to actually check out the EPL5 branch. So these are the things. At the moment we're like starting with one branch, keep it simple, and we will see if it actually works, the work to actually support having multiple spec in one review.
I think the best way would be to be allowed to create multiple branches, but if you don't create multiple branches, then the master branch is used, and when you create the actual Git repository in the actual dist-gits, then you automatically create all the branches from master that have not yet been created. So then the reviewer, the submitter could create branches for different spec files, but doesn't have to.
Yeah, this is, we've thought about it a little bit, but really it boils down to trying to keep it simple for the newcomers. Even if, we, people who've been doing reviews, you have 100 packages, you have half of them in EPL as well, you know what you're doing, you can work around, or you can do something. But if imagine someone new comes in and says, I want to do something for EPL 7, he checks the branch, and suddenly a new Git branch, and there's 2 Git branches, and he has to keep them in sync, which actually might be a good, to show that he can actually do it during the review. I'm not saying no, but if it's something that we really want to do during the review when the person is just learning the ropes, I'm not sure.
I may be asking something you covered in the talk, because I was multitasking, but was there...
Most people are.
Is there, is it part of this for the reviewer to very easily be able to submit pull requests to the packager during review? Because that's something I often would like to do when I'm reviewing. Say, hey, this should be fixed, and not just say this should be fixed, but say, look, here's a fix for it.
So the question is, could we actually integrate within the review process fork and pull request mechanism? One of the ideas which I have had in my mind also when I actually started to work on Project was, could we actually replace our current package.fedora-project.org, which is a simple cgit on every git containing every spec file. And if we could actually have something like a little bit like Project maybe, we could actually indeed have mechanisms of I want to contribute to the Eclipse spec file, so I'm just fucking the Eclipse spec, submit, and instead of having Bugzilla ticket to just run an update, I can just attach the Git badge to the ticket, and I can actually fork the spec, fork the repo, edit the spec, submit the request. I don't see that in the review process itself. Also because, especially for newcomers, the review process is a lot about learning the tool, and if you provide directly the solution, they learn a little less.
But I often do reviews, everyone goes through the review process for every new package. So me and Benny or whatever are doing PHP packages, we each own like 50 of them, and we're reviewing something, and it's
Right.
like, we both know the other one knows what they're doing, but it would be nice just to be able to send a fix and not say, this is what you should fix.
And I've seen plenty of reviews in Bugzilla where actually the reviewer attached a spec file. Here's the fixed spec file, use this instead of yours.
It's really messy.
Yeah, so, right. To show us.
Yeah, I think that Adam is kind of touching on something that I was interested in too, is that there's kind of a social aspect to packaging and package review and whatever. So, when his point about when you know someone and you trust them, then you can share, things more easily than if someone's new and you think that that part of your object is to teach them and also to confirm their knowledge so that you would feel comfortable sponsoring them. Another aspect of it is that when you review a package, there are guidelines, but there's also looking at that spec file and realizing that there's something wrong with it, and then being able to point out.
I mean, tabs.
Yeah, well, I think that's in the guidelines. Don't mix them, but you know, there's things that the automated tool will pick up, and therefore people don't have to think about them anymore, which is great. But you also want to, you know, condition that style, and just certain things that they're doing are probably not right.
Right.
Like if you, say you have a make file that would do a make install and install everything in the right places, but the packager is choosing to use install instead. There's no guideline for it, blah, blah, blah.
Or they just
Either way,
file-
end up with the
file
same
section.
thing, but you don't look at that and say, you really should just use what upstream has already provided to do that.
So, there was one way, is right, the complicated way, I would put it this way, is to include the fork and pull requests during the review.
Yeah.
The simple way is, why limit the comments, permissions. Anybody in the packager group will be able to comment into review Git repos, right? So if you want something fixed in the review, just commit it in the review repo.
Yeah.
The review server is going to run the Fedora review and whatever queuing checks on your commit anyway.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah, that would work fine. As long as.
yeah, I really think this.
I think also one thing that which didn't show up on your slides is a FedRev import. That's like the current Fed package import, so that if we already have an SRPM, we can easily get it in.
We didn't actually include, it was just a rough idea. So yeah, FedRev import. I think actually most of the comments from Fed package make sense in FedRev. There are a few that don't. For example, build dash no, that's actually spread root, so that's Koji, this is separate. So yeah, build doesn't make sense in FedRev because you can't yet, but you can do spread builds if you install the certificate. So and really most of the comments make sense, but we probably want to keep it simple, so we don't provide, I don't know. So,
I have a question. Many reviewing systems are based on those. In Fedora, we have the one reviewer rule, which is actually because we don't have the right tools to do that. For instance, in OpenCypher, reviews are done by voting people vote on reviews, and you have to approve that. Some core reviewers, which should not do it. Do you intend to implement such systems or allow it at some point?
So the question is, do we actually want to integrate the votes on the package reviews? And for me, the simple answer is going to be, the blunt answer is going to be no. The more complex, the more elaborate one is going to be, we have a huge queue of reviews pending reviewers, and if you actually count the reviewee and the reviewers, we already have 2% that are reviewing the spec file. Having a third person involved makes sense in some cases, especially when you have conflicts between the reviewee and the reviewers on some specific parts. I think for each review a voting system, so it's not the best idea at the moment.
Well, it might affect some of the load because the main problem we have is that one review is tied to one reviewer, which may not be available, and we may switch at any time. Any core reviewer may pass and approve any package if he feels it's right.
I'm afraid that would result in sort of no man's land. Like anybody can do it, so I'm not going to do it because anybody can come along and do it. Once you kind of assign a Bugzilla or the review to yourself, you're taking it, on your responsibility. If you don't, if you just do votes, then whose responsibility is to say the final yes? Or do we say 3 people say yes, then it's okay?
Well, maybe we could have a core reviewer status, which which bring responsibility. When you sponsor someone in Fedora, you are responsible until it becomes a proven packager or either sponsor.
Okay, I think the complete. I'm not saying this is definitely possible, right? It's not possible on Bugzilla. It will be possible if you wanted to do this. This is actually one of the reasons why we, started looking at the workflow instead of, just implementing it. Because, okay, maybe we could have a discussion of do we want to have reviews done completely differently? Maybe a la, Garrett, where really people kind of review and then verify.
One thing which I have against voting is the idea that there is no consensus. Voting means that the majority imposes its view on the minority, which means that if you have 3 people agreeing and 2 people disagreeing, at the end the 2 people that disagree don't have the choice but to basically veto it. So I think the current process, even if that involves more person, not having the possibility of voting and enforcing something, well, you can always enforce by according to fiscal, just as a reviewer, stop reviewing it and say, well, I disagree with you, we want to change your mind, so I cannot continue this review. Just let it be assigned to you. If you actually do voting, then the reviewer doesn't have the possibility of saying, well, I disagree, we can't do it, because eventually more reviewers are coming and disagreeing, and then his confidence or his power is lost in the confrontation with the vote.
Well, there are many ways to make it work. It would be a better conversation.
We would just complicate it quite a lot.
If we're talking about changes to the review process, I know it's probably not your decision in the end, but I think what we should also think of to reduce the review queue somehow is to let really experienced packagers who have been in proven packager and sponsor for years just import their packages and not have to go through the review process. It doesn't make sense that experienced packages like Rex Dieter have to put hundreds of packages for review and it just fills the review queue and those packages should just go in.
I see the point. So the question is, could we actually leave people which are packager for a long time, probably packager, eventually sponsors, who maintains tens, dozens, or hundreds of packages in Fedora, directly after package is accepted. The point which I have with that is I think the review queue is not filled with package reviews waiting from proven packager. So people which are proven packager or packager for a while normally know who they can ask for reviews. So I don't think that they are the ones which are actually the majority of the review queue. And the second thing is that you can always miss something. Having 2 sets of files doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but I've done reviews for customers that have hundreds of packages in Fedora, and one of the header files had a different license. And that's something which you can miss in the packaging. So, yeah, I would agree if we really had only proven packager waiting on the review queue that we need to deal with it. In the current situation, I'm not sure that FESCO will agree, and I'm not sure I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I suppose that problem is going to be reduced with further automation too, isn't it? Because if the actual review is not much more than like putting your tick somewhere.
Yeah, so just a comment, because basically the automation part of the review will should help with the queue, right? If you don't have to go back to an old review just to find out that it doesn't actually even build, it should help.
Any other questions? Comments? Suggestions? You have ideas for the name?
Very useful.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.